Wholeness, welcome to my channel, My Space, My Place. My name is Rashida Silvertree, and today's topic, we're going to talk about conflict. How to deal with conflict. Negative energy. Do you react? Do you respond? Do you stay put? Do you move things out of your way? How do you deal with it? And so the other day, I was eating a meal and this came to me and I wrote it down. So for conflict, I put to snuff out the light of falsehood is true power. To snuff out the light of falsehood is true power. In my experience with working with people, specifically professionally, I will say a lot of the time when there is conflict in a workspace or conflict in like a work environment, people will come to me and they'll say, well, if so-and-so says this, I'm going to do it right back, right? It's very, I've literally had someone say recently, I fight fire with fire. And I'm like, that just creates a bigger fire, does it not? And for me, it's like, never fight fire with fire, or you will be engulfed by the flames that you helped create. And maybe the passive nature that I have comes from when I was growing up as a young Muslimah, wearing the hijab and, having to deal with insults from, I would say, educated adults who had a lot to say in the early 2000s about Islam and about terrorism and all this other stuff. And so I had to develop a very strong exterior when challenged by adults as a minor, as a child. Okay, I was 13, 14 years old at the time. And even when I was much younger than that, people would scream out names and call us names out in public, or, they would, it was rough, when you growing up in a household that practices the atypical, you have an atypical upbringing, right? Like, this is predominantly white, very Christian, Western world and Western values. And when you are out on the outside of that, even though this is a free country, free market, free world, right? You can still, receive a lot of resistance. So I think at a very young age, I learned how to operate and invoke non-resistance, meaning it wasn't like some of the things I've experienced didn't hurt my feelings, or I didn't, get upset, but I was always very, developed just a really thick skin. And as I got older and I started to explore my own spirituality and how I identify with that, I learned that the universe and source always has your back. There's really not any need to do anything. Yes, there are moments you need to speak up for yourself. You need to stand up for yourself, or you need to speak up for somebody or stand up for someone else. But I've also learned I pick my battles very, very carefully. I don't fight fire with fire. I don't fight really at all. If anything, I use the element of air. I use the element of the mind. Okay? And with air, we can speak things into existence. We breathe, we inhale, we exhale. We use that pranayama in and out and in. And you can manipulate energy this way. You can clear out your whole energy field through breath alone. When you have that type of control over this energy. And so the wind element to me represents the mind and thoughts, the thinking, thought forms, giving birth to ideas. And so when I'm faced with, conflict, or someone's pain body is activated, pain body comes from, it's a term coined by Eckhart Tolle, who wrote The Power of Now. When you are immersed by someone else's pain body, I use it as a time to observe. It's super easy, okay? Sometimes when you don't do the inner work, it's easy to get caught off guard and make it emotional, make it about you, make it about I have to defend my ego. The ego is then triggered by the pain body. And yeah, sometimes I've had slip of the tongue, and my tongue can be very sharp, very, very sharp. I'm not one to just throw insults back at people. I am one to say a truth. I know that it's the truth, and the person receiving the blow knows it's the truth, and everybody involved knows it's the truth. I have always been this way, even as a child with my family. And it annoys them, and they can't stand it, but I just call it as it is. And I've learned very quickly you don't do that, in professional settings, right? You don't do that with certain circumstances. You just have to be very careful. I've always kind of been very hyper observant, and I've learned that the trick when you're facing conflict is to allow the opposing the opposing force, or the energy, the resistant energy, allow it to say all that it needs to say. Allow it to express everything that it needs to express. Okay? You don't have to react. You don't have to respond to someone else's activated pain body. We all have a pain body. It just depends on your relationship with the pain body and your ability to identify the pain body within you. When you create the space and you do the inner work to identify the pain body within you, you can easily identify the pain body in another. So yeah, be cautious. I'm very elemental, if anything. I believe in the power of elemental magic. It's not just burning a candle and waving your hands in the air and burning some sage and burning a piece of paper. You have to believe you are the element of fire. Fire is that passion. It's your drive. It is in your solar plexus. It is the will. It's courage, right? Or courage. That's a French word. Cœur meaning heart. Rage. Right? Courage is channeled anger. And that channeled anger can help push you in a certain direction and push certain energies certain places. Courage, using fire, is when it's intentional, is very powerful and very poignant. So is the element of water, so is the element of air, so is the element of earth. And I incorporate these practices in my life, and I try to attempt to incorporate as much as I can, and awareness, that is, of these elements in my day-to-day life. Okay, it's not about witchcraft and waving your hands up in the four directions. This is way deeper than that. It's a whole nother thing to go beyond just ritual. It's a whole nother thing to embody what you truly are as an alchemist. So when dealing with opposing forces or negativity or an activated pain body, keep this in mind and choose the type of element you want to activate in that point, right? Because an overactive, someone who's very fiery, right? Or who's choosing to fight fire with fire, you can get lost in it. You're already wrapped up in someone else's pain body and someone else's story now. And now your ego's deep into it, right? The ego has its place and has its role, and you have to know how to identify where that is with each element of yourself. Like when I think of water, ego shows up as depression, just suppressed and very wrapped up in a storyline, and it's too much water. right? You begin to drown on yourself, drown in your own water, drown in your own energy. When it comes to the ego being too much air, when it comes to when you have too much, when the ego shows up in the head, you're very heady, ungrounded, your ideas don't manifest. It's very hard for people to even have an argument with you, or you are just all over the place and people can't follow you. You can't express your intellect in a balanced way. Too much earth is you're just way too dense, okay? Too involved in the issue at hand. And I love talking about, how alchemy, or talking about how the elements are always interacting with us. We just are numb to it. We're numb to a lot of who we are. So may this message find you well and whole. And again, there are times where you need to blow out that flame, and you can do that by silence, truly. Somebody comes at, like, if someone's coming at you with a volcano of anger and rage, let them rage out. Let them burn themselves out. Don't feed the flame, because it just turns into something else. Or you can douse it with water, but that causes steam. So there's always, you have to just use your intuition and as a guide when dealing with certain situations. But just be very cautious and know that a lot of the times when it comes to the light of falsehoods, when something is true, it doesn't really need, you don't really need a lot, or to put a lot of energy into something, if I'm making any sense to you. Truth needs time and it needs space to breathe. That's all. With falsehoods and the light of falsehoods, something may seem true, and it takes a lot of energy to convince people to believe in something that is false. So keep that in mind. Okay, keep that in mind. It's very important, because false light is a real thing. And especially if someone's so passionate about what they think is true, and they're angry, and there's just so much in it. Truth is simple. It needs space and it needs time to stretch out. But truth is truth. You don't need to do anything. Falsehoods, it needs to feed, right? So that's all I have for you in this message. And just share your thoughts. I'm a type of person, I don't like confrontation. I don't like to argue. I've had to find my inner voice to speak up for myself. And how to be an advocate for myself. I'm still learning. I'm not perfect at it, because I have this space of just can be kind of detached. But I've learned to love the human in me, love the connection between my being and human has strengthened over the years. And so I'm my advocate, learning to be my own advocate and learning to use my voice to protect myself, or to speak up for myself, to express myself. Like, one of the reasons why I make this video, right? Or these messages, it's a practice of me advocating for my own ideas and philosophies, despite others who disagree. So, you know, it's something I'm always actively trying to improve on. Other people don't have a problem with advocating for themselves. It's all about how you really do it. You can be an advocate for yourself, but if you come off as an a-hole, that's not gonna help you. You're just gonna be known as an a-hole, and people bypass what you're really trying to say. Um, so yeah, may this message find you well and whole, and share your thoughts. Thank you.